you guys. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. So last year was an absolute mess. Last year was a mess, but I'm so glad to be here. I'm so grateful for the fact that I get to be here in one piece. So last year I was living here in Cape Town and I was doing tutoring. So I didn't really have a job per se at the time. I was just doing, tutoring here and volunteering here. But I was doing everything that I could to keep my head above water. It was at this time, living in District 6, that I started tutoring Saudi students. Now, my students were awesome. I had the best times with them. But there was one student in particular that I only taught once, and there was a very good reason for it, girl. So in the community I was in, it was predominantly Muslim. I would say about 95% Muslim. Everybody was Muslim within that geo-demographic area. And it was such a wonderful community because they were so open and friendly towards me, which I did not expect. So cool. I'm doing my teaching gig. I had met this boy. We're calling him Mubin. I'd seen him, maybe 2 times before. It was on the third encounter that, I meet him and he sees me talking to another student and he wanted to know if he could also have, an English class. I was like, cool, let's do it. I am free on this date, that date, and the other. You let me know. So we decide how I used to do my English classes is I would make them very interactive. So we would go hiking or we would do some sort of activity. Cool. We decide we're going to go hiking on Signal Hill. Girl. Sometimes a major challenge I've had as a trans woman is knowing when to tell someone that I'm trans and distinguishing when it's appropriate or if it's even any of their business to know what's going on between my legs. And for the most part, I've gotten to this point in my transition where I feel like it is my transition. I don't need to tell you about it, unless we are being intimate in some way or unless I want to be with you. If you're just some random person, I don't necessarily feel that I have to, tell you my life story. I'm sorry, I don't. That's not how I feel. So, obviously, when I met Mubin, I didn't let him know that I was trans. I let him know when we were going to have the class, what we were going to cover. That's what I wanted to talk to him about. Nothing else. Girl, we get up on that mountain. And that boy thought he was about to ride something else. Because, look, he was a perfect gentleman. But what you need to understand about Saudi Arabian culture is that men and women are kept separate unless they're relatives. So holding hands, hugging, all of that is forbidden. So I wasn't expecting him to be all, touchy-feely, Barney up on me, let's have a hug. No, I thought he was going to be, keeping his distance. But, he gives me a hug and he's happy to see me. And I'm like, cool, he must be getting used to things down in Africa. So the lesson's beginning and I'm checking his grammar, just his sentence construction. He starts off by telling me how pretty I am, and I'm ticking that off. Excellent English sentence, great job. Now, can you tell me about the nature? And then he keeps going, teacher, beautiful like a rose. And I'm like, okay, can we talk about something else? It's at this point that, look, if you've ever been hit on by a guy, you can sort of see him coming a mile away, falling over himself with his, little pickup lines. I felt uncomfortable for two reasons. I felt uncomfortable because I was much older than what he is. He's 19, I'm in my 30s. You know what I mean? I'm like 33. Not happening anytime soon. I wasn't physically attracted to him, and that's not what I'd come there for. I'd come to give him a lesson. Now, it's annoyed me on YouTube, when people make videos, and I've made videos like this where I'm like, he didn't know I was transgender. The reason that question annoys me is, number one, no one who is not sleeping with you, who's not intimate with you, needs to know about your sexual history or whether or not that you're trans. I feel if my transition and my genitalia or whatever I've got going in this area doesn't concern you, I feel like I shouldn't have to bear my soul out. Look, I've done it before. I've done it before in the past where I've told every person that I was trans. And that's tiring. Yes, I get the point that people don't want to feel like they're being tricked. People don't want to feel like they're being misled. But who is misleading who? If you tell me you're interested for a lesson when in actual fact you want to learn how to get into these panties. For me, it seems like the lie started with you. You know what I mean? And not with me. I am who I am. I'm very proud of who I am. And I may not be visibly trans sometimes, other times I am. But whether I am or I'm not has nothing to do with anyone that I'm not intimate with. But, I felt bad at the same time because he was a cool kid. I like this kid. And I understand how guys get angry when they think, they're talking to a biological female. Come to find out, sis's pee is way bigger than dude's pee. Like, you know what I mean? Come to find out that they're talking to a trans girl. So cool, whatever, I get it. I don't mean to be rude or vulgar, but I get it. And I get, people's egos get wounded and stuff. But I was in a situation where I'm on top of Signal Hill, girl. Me and this man. And if he wants to me down, girl, no one's gonna come look for me. Look for me. If he pushes me off this cliff, that's over for me. If he throws rocks at me, that's it for me. So I didn't tell him. I just kept the lesson going, but I was very standoffish with him. And it kind of hurt because I'm like a very huggy, friendly person, but I needed to, be like, away from me, please, stand over there, Yeah. And at the end of the class, we were taking pictures and we were joking, and I was sure that he was over this little crush of his. But it was when we were sitting down waiting for our Uber, he put his arm around me and I could feel him like right close, right here, girl, up in my face. And again, I was in a situation like this with an Arab man. And I knew at that point that would be the last time I'd ever be in a situation like that with an Arab man before who did not know about my transition. Because their culture is different and their religion is different. And many of them may not take a liking to, to me. So I felt kind of like, I wish he'd stop this. I really, really wish he would. Thank God for me that Uber comes and drops us off at District 6. Now, as the Uber gets there, I'm thinking, great, gonna get into the Uber, I'm gonna get him my place, he's gonna go to his place, and then I'm just gonna cut contact, It'll just be one lesson that I taught, and that'll just be it. No more conversation between him and me. It was when the Uber driver drops us off in the same street that I lose. Girl. We lived in the same street. We were basically neighbors, and I was teaching some of his friends. I got so nervous. I gave him a big hug, and I was like, well, it was wonderful teaching you, this, that, and the other. And I sprinted to my apartment. I lived the rest of my time there scared that, he was going to bump into me or someone was going to tell him that I was transgender, because that's the second part to it. If you don't tell your story, Bob, Jimmy, Clegg, Ron, Susie, Alice, everybody and their mama wants to tell your story, and embellish it and make it more than what it is. So I knew if I didn't tell him, other people were going to tell him. And if I didn't tell him, we might bump into each other and I might not be looking, all that great. And he might just clock me. And I remember I just had to live with that fear. I had to live with that fear in that space. Thankfully, the times when I did see him, he was nothing but a gentleman. I made sure to keep my distance and to keep it at hello and goodbye. And yeah, it ended at that. Sometimes when we live in Muslim communities or communities that are predominantly Muslim and we interact with people that come from different faith systems, we tend to have very, very judgmental ideas and thoughts about them. And I get it, girl, you gotta be safe. But in as much as I was living in a very Muslim area, something has to be said to the fact that the people there treated me with nothing but respect. The ones who knew and the ones who didn't. So, I don't know if he knew I was trans. Maybe he did. I don't think he did. But if he did, then he did. And if he didn't, then he didn't. And that's not my concern, You need to stop. We really, really, really need to stop living for these other people and just start living, girl. Anyways, bye.